This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo, giving you the inside track on all the big talking points from Anfield.
A very good afternoon and welcome to the Blood Red podcast. And it's a very happy new year to all our viewers from the Liverpool Echo here. Filmed in the heart of the city centre. I'm joined once again for the start of the year by Paul Gorst. Paul, how are you doing?
Good, yeah. Looking ahead to a brand new year. Hopefully a better second half of the season for Liverpool. But yeah, looking ahead, optimistic for what lies in store. How about you?
I'm going to try and feed off your optimism, Gorsty, because I'm not sure I'm quite feeling it.
No, I mean, I can understand that after last night. That is fair enough, yeah.
We'll try and take a balanced look at it. But, you know, as you say, a new year, you know, a new start, a fresh start brings optimism. And then Liverpool decided to go and play out a absolutely dire 0-0 draw yesterday with Leeds United, which hasn't really done them any favours whatsoever, nor the manager, I would suggest. First off, what did you make of it?
It was really poor, wasn't it? You know, it's Liverpool are now 8 games unbeaten. They're into the top 4. Little bit of breathing room between them and Chelsea, but that feels a little bit like papering over the cracks. You know, it's been difficult to be overly critical of Liverpool during this run because they've been winning more often than not. You know, you look at some of the wins in there and they're quite encouraging. You know, Tottenham away is always tough. Inter in the Champions League. You know, Brighton always give Liverpool a game. So there are some decent wins in there, but you're still waiting for them to put together a performance befitting of champions. No, they are Premier League champions. I mean, they're not going to retain that title now, but you're just waiting for them to put together a complete performance over 90 minutes. And I don't think they've done that once, in all honesty. And yesterday was really poor. You know, no Alexander Isak and no Mo Salah. You know, the Premier League's 2 top scorers from last season. You know, you can make caveats and arguments, but as an attacking force, and this has become a real worry for me now, they just never really look like there's a plan there. A lot of pressure on Hugo Ekitike. He's had a good season, but he's drifting from the area where he's meant to be in to get the goals. You know, too many times yesterday there was no one there in the 6-yard box because he's moved away. And I'm not digging him out or singling him out at all, but it's things that he can work on. And yeah, there's just a lot of ponderous pedestrian football, and Leeds were not really put under too much pressure, were they? You know, what was it? 4 shots on target, only 1 in the second half, which was a Bosley from about 25 yards. Leeds were comfortable. At no point did I think Liverpool were going to score, even with the idea that they, you know, certainly earlier on in the season at least, were quite known for finishing strongly and scoring late goals. You know, you'd probably still be playing now, and Leeds would be heading away balls into the box and defending quite calmly.
Well, first off, all that optimism I was hoping to gain off Gorst is just drained right out of me. No, I'm only joking.
I'm certainly optimistic for the year ahead, personally. Yeah. You know, not necessarily the football that we saw yesterday.
Definitely not, no. But I think you've hit the nail on the head, though, in terms of Leeds, who have come to Anfield. I've got a good result there. I think they're on an unbeaten run themselves after having a pretty dire start to the season. They've started to make a bit of headway. Yeah. But that's not Liverpool's problem, is it? And as you said, the Leeds didn't have to break sweat really. Yeah. They're just defending their 18-yard box. They're defending the 6-yard box. The delivery's not particularly good. At no point did they run ragged, did they? At any point whatsoever. And that says to me that there's either some sort of structural issue or the team just isn't working hard enough.
Yeah, certainly. I think the structural issue is a good point. You know, we know that Liverpool haven't got wingers out there at the moment with no Salah, and Cody Gakpo hasn't had a good season at all, but he's coming back from injury. So he's got Florian Wirtz and Dominic Szoboszlai in those areas. Szoboszlai, to be fair, wasn't yesterday, but probably no surprise that the game's best player was a winger with a bit of pace. You know, Jeremy Frimpong, you know, he was really good. He was the one that stood out against, you know, the rest of them who were pretty mediocre. And, you know, just as you were talking, I was thinking about that phrase from Mikel Arteta many years ago when he spoke about Anfield being a washing machine. And for years we've seen teams get caught in it, haven't we, and get swept up and swept aside. But this Liverpool team at the moment don't look like they're going to ever do that to any team who comes to Anfield. You know, they scored after 46 seconds against Brighton the other week, and you think maybe this is the one where they put the foot on the neck a little bit, but even that, you know, clean sheet, but it was a tense, nervy game. They eventually win 2-0. There's just no real evidence that a big performance is coming, or, you know, in previous Liverpool teams, you know, we might have spoke about someone's going to get a hiding soon, you know, teams getting away with it a little bit and it won't last forever, but that's not happening. That's not going to happen anytime soon, is it, with this team at the moment? So it's tough. They are in the top 4, so I don't think there'll be any internal panic. And they are, like I say, still unbeaten, but I think I don't think you can pull the wool over too many people's eyes. I think a lot of supporters, certainly after last night, from what I've seen on social media, you know, from reasonable people who I follow, there seems to be a little bit of an idea that, you know, this just isn't quite working. And I have to agree, because they just look so, they've tightened up a bit, but the balance has gone too far the other way. You know, they're not looking like they're ever going to score, really.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. And we kind of said a few weeks ago, didn't we, have to be careful what you wish for, because Liverpool were leaking too many goals, far too many goals. They've sorted that out now. They've shored that up, but it's come at quite a cost at the other end of the pitch. And not only that, it's boring. You know what I mean? It's not a good watch.
No, well, that's it, isn't it? You know, it's like I was saying, you never really get the impression that Liverpool are going to turn on the afterburners and blow a team away. You know, teams are coming to Anfield and knowing that. And I think maybe it's a bit of a stylistic change as well in the Premier League, where teams are relying on set pieces a lot more, throw-ins, free kicks, corners, so they know that they can sit in and dig deep and wait for their opportunities along. You know, Ethan Ampadu was launching them in all game, wasn't he, yesterday in Liverpool? To be fair, on a rare occasion where they stood up to it quite well and defended it well, but teams generally have worked out that Liverpool don't really have a fear factor anymore. You know, if they can stay in a game against them, then they might get one or two chances themselves up the other end via set pieces. And, you know, Calvert-Lewin, has it not been for a little bit of an outstretched right foot, he might have nicked the winner. And you look reflected on what would be a 7th defeat for Liverpool this season. So yeah, there's you know, like I say, 8 games unbeaten, but it just hasn't been convincing, has it, really? And when they're winning, you can't be too critical of them. But, you know, 2 draws with Leeds and Sunderland in that sequence. Seen a stat from Michael Reid yesterday of Opta, and it was you know, in games against Forest, Wolves, Leeds, and Bournemouth, possibly. No, maybe not Bournemouth. There was another team in there, can't quite recall now, but Liverpool have had 4 big chances, according to Opta. You know, 4 big chances in 4 games against teams who they should be swatting aside quite comfortably at Anfield. That tells you where the problems lie, really. Yeah,
it's nowhere near good enough. I was quite surprised to actually see that Liverpool had 19 shots yesterday.
Yeah.
I was like, are you sure these stats are from the same game that I've just watched? Because I don't remember that happening, but I guess, I think, how many on target did you say?
4.
Only 4.
Yeah.
So, big problems, and it's not a good look, is it, when you've spent so much money in the summer? You can't get away from that, I don't think. It's, you know, we don't want to just put it all on the price tag of players that have been brought in, but it just doesn't reflect well, and I feel like the January window's open now. I feel like there may need to be some sort of business done just to try and re-energise this side. But I suppose one of the questions is which area do you tackle first?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. You know, I think a lot of supporters might argue that centre-back is an issue because they've only got 2 fit at the moment. You know, Joe Gomez is back in training today, so that's a big boost. But yeah, I mean, there was talk of Semenyo, wasn't there? You know, looks like he's going to go to Manchester City now. Yeah, I mean, they've been unfortunate that he broke his leg. He's come to the club unfit and then he breaks his leg. So we're not going to see him until March. And I think we have to temper our expectations for him when he comes back. We're not going to see the best of him until next season now, which is sadly, you know, almost a fact, really. So a lot of it falls on Ekitike, who's had a really good season, being, you know, one of the bright spots. Florian Wirtz had a good December, but concerns over him potentially carrying a hamstring injury. They've got to play that carefully over the next few weeks. No Mo Salah, of course. Cody Gakpo has been injured, but is having a really desperate season for my money. To be fair, young Rio Ngamoa was the one who provided a little bit of a spark, wasn't he, off the bench yesterday? But you can't expect too much of a 17-year-old in the Premier League. So, do Liverpool go and bring someone in the forward areas? In terms of future planning, I think they probably do need a forward anyway, don't they? So it's a case of, do you sort of bring that forward 6 months from the summer? Who would it be? I'm not too sure, but certainly they're looking a bit toothless, and they could do with a bit of creativity. They could do with a bit of speed. Someone who's going to contribute, really. Ekitike is on 11, I think, for the season, and I think after that, Salah's on 5, and Salah hasn't played for 2 or 3 weeks now. So
yeah,
they need goals, they need creativity, and we're struggling to see where it's going to come from, really, on a consistent basis at the moment.
Well, as you say, one positive. We've managed to find a positive from yesterday, which was a performance of Jeremy Frimpong, who's looked lively. Signed as a right back, I think, but has looked more encouraging as an attacking player, as a winger, which we know he did both for Leverkusen, and that seems to be the same here. But I feel like does he feel like a player to you that maybe just needs a little bit of a run on the side now to see if he can build on that positivity that he's brought when plenty around them are not meeting the levels?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you're struggling to think of what would be the option if he's not playing now on that wide right. I know they've trialled Szoboszlai in there, but you want him sort of central midfield, don't you?
Well, he also plays right back as well, apparently.
Yeah, well, exactly, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I'd just give Frimpong a go now. When he's fit, put him in there, and you seen the, what he can create when he's allowed the space and time to run. There was the one yesterday, wasn't it, where he just sort of blitzes past Pascal Struijk, leaves him for dead, cuts it back. It's a nice little cut back. Wirtz's touch lets him down. There's the one for Ekitike when he should score. Not really sure what happens there. He sort of heads it backwards.
Yeah.
So he's creating opportunities, isn't he? He's getting round the back. He's stretching teams. And that's what we expected of him when he brought him to the club. He's a bit of a versatile operator. Plays wing back, wide forward, right back, wherever you need him. But at the moment, I'd have him in that wide right position, as long as he's fit, and chance for him to build on what's been a decent week for him, really. Obviously, the assist for Gravenberch against Wolves, the assist for Ekitike against Spurs, and yesterday he was bright again. So yeah, keep him in the team and see what he can produce, because there's not too many others who are stepping forward and creating at the moment, are there? Well,
Federico Chiesa didn't really take his chance the other week, did he? Which I think was a bit disappointing for a lot of people who've wanted to see him give us an opportunity and not really taking it. And unfortunately, I think he's in good company in that aspect, with the exception maybe of Frimpong in the last few weeks. Ngamoa as well. As you said, he's along with Frimpong, there's a player who is actually prepared to take a man on, try and get him behind and do something to excite the crowd and get them off their feet. So I certainly think he should be, I'm not saying necessarily start him, as you say, it's a lot of pressure on a 17-year-old, particularly when the senior players who just don't seem to be delivering. But he's certainly someone I'd like to see get more of an opportunity. What worries me, though, is just that, we're going to pick our teams in a bit for Fulham, and I've written down a potential team that I think might play. But the nearer I get to the front of it, the less balanced everything looks. They just don't feel like they've got balance across the pitch.
No, and you just mentioned there about Rio and Ngamoa. I mean, I think Florian Wirtz has had a really decent December, to be fair. But I think we've seen yesterday a player who was experiencing the first season of a non-winter break. I know the fixtures haven't been too heavily congested, and it's been quite sparse this season, but he's not used to that. It's playing over the Christmas period, is he? And it's funny actually that after the Wolves game, he obviously scores the winner, and a couple of people at the club tried to get him to speak to us after the game. Do you want to go and talk about whatever? And I think he said, basically, he's that tired. He can't walk, essentially, and And Slot said something similar in the press conference that he's absolutely knackered after the however many kilometres he ran against Wolves. And then he suggested after last night that he felt his hamstring, a couple of days later. So you're going to have to be careful with that because the options are quite thin at the moment anyway. So you don't want to be risking him too much at the moment. So is there an option on that left wing for Rio and Gamoa? You'd expect him to play against Barnsley, wouldn't you? And I think a lot of people going to that Barnsley game will be excited at the prospect of Ngamoa getting her starts there. But at the moment, Gakpo... It was, Gakpo coming on yesterday, and it wasn't like a reminder of what Liverpool have missed. It was a reminder of, just a bit of a one-trick pony, wasn't it? Again, cutting back all the time, looking to loft it to the back post, and it wasn't really working. And yeah, there's just a real lack of creativity there at the moment for Liverpool, and it's not something that is just a little bit of a, something that they can work out. I feel like this is a proper problem that's got hold of them at the moment, and it's when does that improve? Because you might not see, till Isak's back, till Salah's back. It's tough to put a finger on when all this is going to
That's a long
change.
time.
Yeah. And I hope I'm not being too negative at the moment. It's not a knee-jerk on the back of a result where Liverpool don't win yesterday. I just think it's been evident all season, really. The games that they have won, they just sort of stay in games and have created enough to get by. But can you think of one result where you think, Liverpool put in a performance there for 70, 75 minutes? Because I'm not sure I can, really. Maybe the game against Arsenal where they win at Anfield, different type of performance when you're playing against a team who are now 12 points clear of Liverpool. But I can't think of many where you've come away thinking, that's why they're champions.
Well, we had this conversation in the heart of the COP yesterday, really. There was plenty of grumblings, you know what I mean? People not happy at all with what they were watching, and the question came up, when was the last time we actually played well? And it was slim pickings. Arsenal didn't get a look in. Real Madrid was the standout performance.
Start of November.
Yeah, which actually, gave me a bit more renewed hope for what Liverpool could achieve this season. And, they beat Aston Villa 2-0, which is a good result, considering how well Villa have done.
That's a great result now.
Well, yeah. Well, the only time they've lost since then was the other day. So
yeah. But those two results was sort of weirdly outliers, because they were in the run when they won, or they lost 9 of 12.
Yeah.
So they were two that they won. I can't remember what the other result was in that sequence, but it's even when they've gone 8 unbeaten, there was still issues around how they managed the game against Tottenham, got themselves into a good position, and then got pegged back and hanging on at the end. Similar against Wolves, wasn't it? Brighton less so, but yeah, you're still just waiting for Liverpool to put together a performance. The quality of the players that they've got suggests that they should be doing more often.
The insight you were given there about Wirtz is quite fascinating for me, really, because I thought he was awful yesterday. Okay, I know. Recently on this pod, I've been praising him, and was excited to see him play again. But then, yesterday he just couldn't string a pass together. And then obviously the manager's come out and said he's had a hamstring issue, which now makes me ask the question of should he have even played in the first place, especially if he was as exhausted after the previous game as you're suggesting he was in the sort of the mix zone area and whatnot. But I know you're saying he hasn't, he's not used to not having a winter break, but it's probably not going to wash with Liverpool fans, that is it? You know what I mean? It's not going to make any difference. It's a results-based sport, and he'll just have to adjust to that. But the wider issue I've got is Liverpool have had a lot of injuries, and they've got some of their key players, like they can't finish matches. Wirtz often comes off. Ekitike hasn't played many 90 minutes, and yet all the pressure is on him now to get the goals, because there's no goals coming from anywhere else, really. How does he solve that problem? I don't know. Is there something in the water at the AXA at the moment? I don't know. How do they solve this?
Yeah, I think that's right, isn't it? There's a glaring lack of match winners at the moment, and even yesterday when Liverpool were sort of doing okay for the first 20 minutes, I was looking round and I was thinking, well, who's going to get the goals here? You know, Ekitike, of course, but after that, no one really, barring, you know, an unusual one or, you know, something a little bit out of the ordinary. So, yeah, it's tough. And with Wirtz, it's tough as well because his natural game is just perpetual motion, isn't it? So he will routinely cover 10, 11 kilometres a game. And when the games are coming sort of thick and fast as they are, again, not as heavy as they usually are around this time of year, because that middle one in between Christmas and New Year hasn't been there this year. But for someone who's not used to it, you know, I can understand why, particularly the type of player he is, like I say, constant movement, why injuries might bite. So it's going to be an important few days for him in terms of how he recovers from that issue. If not, I guess it'll have to be Gakpo, because Ingamoa, that'd be a huge risk, wouldn't it? Roll of the dice, throwing him in against Fulham.
It doesn't feel like something Slot would do as well.
Yeah,
it's proven to be very pragmatic. So the idea of him throwing Ingamoa in, well, even if it's one you'd like to see, it just doesn't feel like it's going to happen, does it?
No. I mean, you look at, don't like to compare and contrast too much, but you know, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago now, Liverpool went to Arsenal in the League Cup semi-final and Kate Gordon starts, and it was a bit like, wow, like, what a decision that is. And he should have scored, actually, put one over the bar in that game. That's what a story that would have been. I couldn't see Slot doing likewise in terms of, you know, giving Ingamoa a run out against Fulham. I think he will stick with the experience, and, you know, Gakpo is really out of sorts, isn't he, for me? But I think, you know, he will come in now, and Wirtz might take a little seat on the bench and rest up as best he can.
Yeah, since we've been talking, I've made a little scribble here, made a change, because now the alarm bells are ringing, and I'm thinking, maybe he needs a little, not a little bit of time up, but maybe a match out, just to be able to recover and be able to perform to the best of his abilities, which, you know, he is the type of player that can get people off, you know, up off the feet and get the crowd going. And you know, it wasn't a great atmosphere yesterday, was it? It was I don't know if I had the hangover, the supporters or the players. I'm not too sure, but
yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Like, it's always a chicken and the egg thing with the atmosphere. You know, it'd be interesting to see where you stand on this. Whether you feel it's the crowd who've got to get the players going, or whether something has to, you know, like the spark on the pitch for the fans to get going. Seen Garnett against Wolves with about 10 minutes to go, and he's giving it all that to them, because I think he could feel the nerves were setting in around the ground, and that doesn't help on the pitch. And Van Dijk said to us after yesterday that, you know, we could understand the fans' frustrations at times, but, you know, where do you stand on it? Is it have the fans got to get the players going, or someone got to do something on the pitch?
So I've seen so many changes at Anfield over the years. It's untrue. So I've been a season ticket holder for 25 years, and was going for, you know, probably about 10 years before that. So you know, the atmosphere in matches has changed, and I think it has across football, top level football, as a wider thing. It's not just an Anfield thing. You know, regardless of how the team's doing, expectation is always sky high. People pay a lot of money to go, and they expect to be entertained. And when you don't get entertained, apathy creeps in, and I think that's what we're witnessing at the moment. I think large portions of the supporter base are not convinced by the manager, even though he is a Premier League title winner with Liverpool, which doesn't feel like it was only last May, does it? It feels like a long time ago that now, unfortunately. So it's a little bit of a two-way street. You know, Liverpool fans pride themselves on a reputation for always backing the manager and backing the crowd and creating a good atmosphere. But something has got to spark it. It needs to be organic, and you know, atmosphere will be created by good performances. And I don't think it's too much to ask Liverpool to put on an exciting performance to try and, you know, re-energise the crowd and get them going. Because by the same token that the supporters probably want to feed off, the players want to feed off energy from the supporters. I think the supporters need something back as well to get them going as well.
Yeah, I mean, I feel as though Liverpool are just looking to grow into games, and they will wait and bide the time and be patient. And if they need to, the decisive moments has to wait until after the hour mark or whatever, then they're happy to do that. But as a result, you sort of just drift through games, and then that's where the opposition can profit and take advantage. And I think that's happened too often, to be honest. Liverpool haven't flown out the blocks at all this season. The goal against Brighton was a bit of an anomaly, wasn't it? 46 seconds. I've got this thing about them just being so ordinary in the first half, and okay, they get the quick fire double against Wolves, but the amount of goals that the amount of games where they haven't scored in the first half for a team of Liverpool's stature, where they should be getting on the front foot and looking to dominate. It's incredible, really. So you're right. Is it a thing where the players have to spark the fans into life? And that's where players like Frimpong can be so useful, because it's direct and they're quick and they want to make an impact. But
he's a character as well, isn't he?
Yeah. But you're just not seeing what the plan is. In the attacking patterns, they're just not really there. And I'm not sure how and when that changes, really.
Despite everything we've said, Liverpool are in Champions League qualification position in 4th place. Missed opportunity to gain ground on Aston Villa. And obviously Manchester City didn't capitalise either with a draw at home to Sunderland, which you could say makes Liverpool's draw of Sunderland look slightly better, but not that it really helps them in their position. Do you think this is realistically as high as Liverpool can finish this season?
No, I still think they can chase down third, and with respect to Aston Villa, I think Liverpool will finish third, and I think at the end of the season we'll look at it and we won't really know what to make of it, because they'll be third, which is no great sort of embarrassment or indignity, but Liverpool have pretty much, depending on when your bias comes in, Liverpool have been out of the title race for quite some time now, haven't they? So that's not how it's been at Liverpool in recent years. Even in Jurgen Klopp's last season, it was probably the end of April when you sort of had to finally throw in the towel on that one. They, of course, went to the final day in 2022 and 2019. They won in 2020. 2021 was a bit of a strange season, bizarre one with no supporters, which I always, rightly or wrongly, just kind of disregard as an entire campaign. So it's been a while since Liverpool have had to concede so early, and it's just not what supporters have been used to really over the last, this decade, I guess, as we come into 2026.
I mean, quite early in this campaign, our colleague Ian Doyle said this was, effectively the title defence was a write-off, and it was now a season of transition and getting ready to go again next year.
Don't be giving him any credit.
Well, I try not to, but it came into my head. So, but he went pretty early on that, didn't he? And he could be entirely right, but that's no good for supporters who are going week in, week out to watch Liverpool. No, it's not. You look at what Liverpool achieved last season, and then what they go and do in the transfer window with regards to the players they brought in. And the start that they had. You imagine how. Can you remember how? I assume you were elated with Liverpool signing Isak on deadline day. 24 hours after he'd just beaten Arsenal to go. I think they were maybe 5 points clear at the time at the beginning of September. Yeah,
it looked like it really set up. To dominate. The coming. Sort of off the pitch, that 10-year agreement with Adidas, and everything was looking rosy, wasn't it? Just a few months ago, and a lot has changed since then. And just to sort of describe it as a season of transition now, okay, fine. You still expect Liverpool to be in the Champions League next season, and where they're going to finish, 3rd, 4th, whatever it may be. But like you say, supporters don't really want to hear that. Certainly when there's still, 18 games left to play, and at the moment you're looking like you're just not really being entertained with the kind of football that's being served up.
More like a season of turbulence than a season of transition, I think, at the moment. And I'm to the point about signing Isak and Wirtz. These are massive marquee signings. You know, Newcastle didn't want to sell Alexander Isak, but he was desperate to join the club and force that through. Nothing's changed in my view of that Liverpool have got excellent footballers, world-class footballers. So there's a fundamental issue somewhere, and it might sit with the manager. And I don't know. He steadied the ship. You know, he's no longer losing games for fun as we were at one point. But I still think he's got a lot of work to do to try and get supporters back on side, and possibly some of his players. He's already had a fallout with Mohamed Salah. We don't know how far down the line that was coming, but and his future will need to be sort of ironed out when he returns from AFCON. Don't we? We had any sort of insight on that?
No. I mean, I think that kind of fell nicely for Liverpool with Salah going off to AFCON, and they could just sort of kick it down the road a few weeks, and you know, it not be an issue press conferences and stuff. So no, I'm not really sure what's happened there. I know Curtis Jones said the Salah had apologised for the issue, but I don't necessarily think it was an apology where it's all water under the bridge. But certainly between him and Slot, you know, I still think there is an underlying issue there which might sort of rear its head again at some stage, particularly if Salah is not getting on the pitch as much as you'd like. But let's face it, Liverpool have missed Mo Salah. Okay, they're unbeaten, and they have until yesterday been winning games. But you know, what would they have given yesterday to have had Salah to call on the bench when it was all looking a bit ordinary for so long? You know, I think he has been missed, and the sooner he comes back, the quicker Liverpool will be able to address the lack of goals and creativity and whatever else. And okay, Slot has steadied the ship, as you say, and tightened it up, and they do look less vulnerable, more defensively durable, but it's gone too far the other way, hasn't it? You know, there's a real unbalanced thing to the team there, which normally when you say that suggests that, you know, they're too many attackers and they're really poor defensively, but at the moment they're just looking a bit too toothless.
2 trips to the capital coming up. I'm not going to talk about the second one. Not prepared for that. But the first one is on Sunday against the Fulham team, who have lost as many games as they've won. But I've seen a few of the games recently and I actually quite enjoyed watching them. They look like an entertaining side, we're brave on the ball, and happy to sort of have a go at teams, even if it might mean, you know, being a little bit looser at the back. I mean, it looks a tricky fixture to me, and I'm saying this about a team who were 11th in the Premier League, but we've just drawn with Leeds, so, you know, it speaks volumes, really. But is this the type of opponent Liverpool want to face at the moment, in that they might be a little bit more open than, say, a Leeds or, you know, one of these teams who like to play a low block, as they call it?
Yeah, maybe. I must admit I'm slightly concerned over this one. I've seen Fulham against Man City, what's probably the game of the season so far.
Not half.
It was a 5-4 in the end. I've seen them against Arsenal. They've been unlucky to lose that. So they're a really good team. Both of those games are at home. And let's not forget, they beat Liverpool in April, didn't they? You know, inflicted only Liverpool's second defeat of the season at the time. So it's going to be tough, particularly given the flaws that we've just spoken at length about. So, yeah, it's I'm not particularly looking forward to this one, if I'm honest. I think Fulham will come out and have a go. You know, that, in theory, could open up more spaces for Liverpool to exploit. But it means that they might be, you know, asked a few more questions defensively than maybe they were against Wolves and Leeds.
Indeed, and you know, if they're able to score early, then you're up against it straight off, aren't you? So it's going to be a tricky one. Well, let's pick our teams then. We'll go with Alisson in goal. I think we can agree on that one. Hopefully, he doesn't kick the ball directly to an opponent.
Yeah, that was strange, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what was happening there, but we'll let him off as he didn't concede a goal from it. Okay, what about your back? I assume a back four, but what have you got at the back?
Yeah, I think Conor Bradley will start. I think Kirkes will return. Garnett and Van Dijk obviously going to be the centre backs. So yeah, that's me back four.
Mine's similar. So I've Bradley's still in, Garnett and Van Dijk centre back. I was surprised that he took Kerkez out yesterday, but I also wasn't impressed with him when he came on. So I'm going to stick with Robbo for this. Just for experience, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm still. Although he has played better recently, I'm still yet to be convinced by Milos Kerkez. But there we go. Now, how about midfield? This is where things start to get a bit unbalanced, I think. I can't quite work this out properly. You've made it a little bit easier for me by saying that Wirtz is not, has got the hamstring issue.
Yeah.
So, but how do you see things in midfield?
Yeah, you're right. I'm not too sure. McAllister still yet to be convinced that he's 100% really. Hasn't had a good season, has he, by his standards? Curtis Jones has been decent generally. If we can sort of ignore yesterday as a bit of a rule of thumb, I'd say Jones has been in form. Gravenberch and Szoboszlai, I guess, isn't it? The ever-present almost. So, yeah, I think I'm going to go with those three as a three-man midfield with McAllister on the bench.
Okay, so mine's slightly different. Again, and Jones has been playing all right recently. Maybe not yesterday. And I just feel like a bit of an insurance policy. I quite like the idea of McAllister being in there, sort of breaking things up the way he does, winning a lot of fouls, and maybe just disjointing Fulham slightly. But there's not a lot in it, if I'm honest with you. But I'll go with McAllister and Gravenberch deep with Szoboszlai in front of them. Now, up front, options are looking thinner again.
Yeah.
We've already praised Jeremy Frimpong, so I'm leaving him in. And I do want to see him further up the pitch. So that's why I've got Bradley in behind him and Frimpong on the right wing. Ekitike through the middle, and then on the left, I did initially have... Actually, Joe, I had Wirtz and I had Szoboszlai out left, not because I wanted to play him, but I wasn't quite sure how to shape it up.
Right.
Struggling with the balance,
yeah.
You know what I mean? But and literally for that reason alone, I'm bringing Gakpo back in just because he's someone who can play on that left-hand side, and I think Wirtz looks like he needs a game off.
No, I agree. Yeah. And, it's interesting, isn't it? You speak about balance there. Liverpool only got one left-footer in the entire team in the left-back, Robertson or Kerkez, both left-footed. Obviously no Salah. So, yeah, Gakpo almost by default, because Wirtz, we don't know how serious that is, but Slot did reference it. There's been a bit of a hamstring scare. So you don't want to be taking any risks with that. So Gakpo comes in. And I'd love for him to grasp the nettle and just say, something I asked him actually. We had the chance to speak to him in pre-season on the pre-season tour of Japan, and I said, "Do you feel like this? I think Diaz had just left. Is this a good opportunity for you now to take a bit of seniority within the squad? You've been here a few years now. I think you just celebrated his third year as a Liverpool player this week. So, step up and become one of the main men on the back of what was his best season last year. So I'd like to see him start doing that against Fulham on Sunday, because it's been pretty ordinary, hasn't it, from him? And I don't want to single him out too much, but coming off what was such an impressive season last year, he just hasn't built on it so far, and obviously he's been injured in recent weeks. But yeah, I'd like to see him step up, because Liverpool need match winners and big, players who can contribute in a big way over the next few weeks, and he is an important player in that front line.
On social media, there's been a lot of sort of praise I've noticed for Luis Diaz recently, which is basically the general consensus being there's quite a few prominent supporters who are a bit miffed as to why he was allowed to leave. But I guess, if he wanted to leave, it's a different matter. But I'm not too sure where the land lies on that. But they've certainly missed his influence on the pitch, and Gakpo, was vying for that position with him. It hasn't really taken his chance. So yeah, I would like to see him, try and stake a claim. I want to see more players who become undroppables,
Yeah.
Like Ekitike has pretty much done that, but there aren't too many out there who have done that. So I think, Sunday would be a good place to start with that. When you were in Japan, I'm sure you needed to contact relatives and friends at back home, and probably the easiest way to do that would be through a secure internet connection, which can be provided by the Blood Red podcast sponsor, NordVPN. To get the best discounts off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/bloodred. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and the link is in the podcast episode description box below.
Flawless link that, Rich.
Thank you,
Flawless.
sir. Without further ado, then, let's make some predictions for Fulham. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Like I say, Fulham will go to home. I'm going to go 2-2 draw.
A 2-2 draw. That'll be entertaining, if nothing else. Yeah. That's good. I also think this is going to be tricky. But I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. I would, I really want to be predicting Liverpool wins, but I just don't see where the goals are coming from. We need to see something to get us excited again, I think, and then hopefully they can turn the corner.
Yeah, I think that's it. I've just spent an hour talking about how poor they look in the final third, and I'm predicting them to score twice away from home, so maybe I'm contradicting myself on that one. But yeah, you're right. It's just, if Ekitike doesn't have one of his good days, it's just tough seeing where the goals are coming from at the moment, isn't it?
Hopefully he doesn't get any header chances from point-blank range that he sends backwards. Are you driving down on Sunday?
Yes, myself and Ian will be there. So,
who's the designated driver?
So he tends to do the journey there, and I'll do the legwork on the way back. But another long day.
That is a long one.
And then we're back in London on Wednesday as well, Wednesday or Thursday.
You wouldn't want to stay down there with Doyley for the duration?
No, it's like 4 days.
Oh,
wouldn't get away with that.
That's a bit much. Yeah. Will he have first dibs on the radio then, or as the driver down?
Yeah. When Liverpool win, we have a little history on the way home, but it hasn't been on for a while. Feels like anyway.
You can always just turn it off.
Listen to one of these old podcasts.
Put tape cleaner on.
Yeah.
Oh well, good luck. Best of luck with the trip. Hopefully it's not freezing cold like it is in Liverpool. I nipped out for lunch before. It's absolutely Baltic here, so hopefully it warms up by Sunday. I'm not too hopeful for you on the banks of the.
Well, it's more south at least. So it might be a little bit warmer.
You live in hope. Well, that's all from me and Paul Gorst today on the Blood Red podcast. Hopefully Liverpool can go and do the business in the capital on Sunday. We'll be here to discuss it next week. Have a great weekend. See you soon.
This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo, giving you the inside track on all the big talking points from Anfield.